Hey everybody, another GMG review. Today we're taking a look at Hedonites of Slaanesh, the new Battletome, which is up for pre-order today, along with the Blades of Khorne, and represents another double-header feature for Warhammer Age of Sigmar, bringing Battletomes up to 3rd edition. This is another complimentary digital review copy that was sent to me by GW to check out, and we're going to go through and see what's new. There's some relatively interesting new mechanics in here, along with all the new match play stuff for grand strategies and battle tactics. And then, of course, some changes to the warscrolls as well. So we're going to review those and take a look at what's new. First things first. I'm not super excited about this, but this is the one faction so far. I can't think of another one. But it's basically one of the few factions remaining where your selectable keyword, your host, is going to give you a completely separate silo for the army to sit into. So Invaders, Pretenders, and Godseekers, the 3 different hosts, each have their own silo of command abilities, spells, artifacts, and traits. So you can play the army 3 ways effectively. You can't mix and match across a bunch of universal stuff, and it does make it slightly more complicated. My favorite mechanic in here so far, though, is an allegiance trait, and that is Temptations of Slaanesh. Basically, at the start of every battle round, after determining who gets to go first, you get 6 temptation dice. And whenever your opponent rolls a die, you can offer them a temptation die. But it has to be for a failed roll to hit, a failed roll to wound, or a failed save. If they take the temptation die, it counts as a 6, and you get D6 depravity points out of your depravity point pool. Now, the interesting thing is, as far as I can tell, my interpretation of this, you never have depravity points go away. So the way summoning works now is you can summon 1 unit at the end of a phase, depending on how many depravity points you want. But once you have depravity points, they are there for good. There's no reference in here. They may have FAQ'd it. They might have just left it out by accident. To having, there's a cost for things, but you don't reduce your pool of depravity points when you spend things. So you're escalating ever higher into new stages of depravity. Now, every turn, which means your turn and an opponent's turn, you can select 2 units in combat, an enemy and friendly unit, and for every wound that friendly unit causes that enemy unit, you get depravity points as well. So there's kind of two paths to depravity, one by hurting people, the other by tempting people. At the end of every battle, or the beginning of every battle round, you discard any remaining temptation dice and then refill your pool up to 6. If your opponent refuses the depravity dice, though, that unit that refused it takes D3 mortal wounds. So there is a cost to also refusing the depravity dice, so no matter what you do here, you're getting something, either depravity points out of your pool, or just hurting that unit if they say no. It is a very cool rule, and lets you kind of escalate the earning of your points kind of quickly. Now, just like in the Blades of Khorne review, which you may have watched already, you can gain coalition units from the Slaves to Darkness book, 2 in every 4 from Slaves to Darkness, 1 in every 4 from Beasts of Chaos. But they have to have the Slaanesh keyword or the Mark of Chaos keyword. And then you cannot have Tzeentch or Slaanesh keywords if you're taking a coalition unit from the Beast of Chaos book. And they don't stop you from having an allegiance trait. Euphoric Killers is another trait. Once per turn at the start of your combat phase, pick a friendly Hedonites Slaanesh unit and enemy unit within one of each other. You gain a depravity point, for each wound or mortal wound that you cause. I already described that. And then Revel in Depravity, depending upon how many depravity points you have, you get cumulative abilities. So once you get 12, you're -1 to hit Hedonites units. Once you get that's Tantalizing Torment. Then you go at 24 to Sadistic Spite. If the unmodified hit roll for an attack made by a melee weapon, the target's them as a 6. Then the attack causes a mortal wound to the target instead of in addition to any damage it inflicts. So basically with 6 to hit become mortal wounds. And on a 36 plus, you become obliviously indulgent and get a 5+ ward. So once you have 36 depravity points, so you'd have to get 6d6 rolls of 6 or cause a whole bunch of wounds, you're going to have a 5+ ward on all your units, be -1 to hit, and all of your 6s to hit cause mortal wounds on melee attacks. And then summon Slaaneshi Daemons. You can summon Hedonites of Slaanesh units to the battlefield if you collect enough depravity points. If you have any depravity points at the end of your movement phase, you can summon 1 unit from the list below to the battlefield and add it to your army. Each unit you summon costs the number of depravity points shown on the list, and you can only summon it if you have enough depravity points to do so. Summon up more than 9 from all enemy units and wholly within 12 of a hero. So That's all the text. There's nothing that says you reduce your pool by the cost. It just says that that's how many you have. I You might have it happen, but the costs are so high that I feel like you don't, because then you would never have your Revel and Depravity abilities either. And because they've capped it at summoning 1, it feels like what happens is once you get to 18 points, you just start getting new units and they start showing up. So you're looking at 18 for a Infernal and Rapturous or Herald, a Vice Leader or a Daemonettes unit with 10 models, 24 for a Chariot, a Seeker's unit with 5 models or a Contorted Epitome, and then 30 for a Bladebringer or a Fiend's unit with 3 models, and then 36 for Keeper of Secrets. So it makes sense that it doesn't go down because these are just your rewards for getting up that high. And once you're up that high, you've got like all your abilities unlocked anyway. All right, so the first of the hosts, the Invaders. Now they get battle traits, 2 of them, either Figurehead of the Dark Prince or Escalating Havoc. So Figurehead is all friendlies. Invaders heroes are treated as the general, even if they're not the model picked to be the general. In addition, roll a dice each time a friendly Invaders hero is carried out to heroic action. On 2+, you can pick another hero to do it. So they can do the same one. So basically all of your guys on a 2+, or 2 of your different heroes on a 2+, can be picked to do heroic actions. Escalating Havoc, this is a heroic action that you can carry out with a friendly Invaders hero instead of picking one from the table below, or in the core rules, sorry. If you do so, pick an eligible command trait from the list below that the Invaders hero does not already know, and they're considered to have that command trait until the end of the turn. And there's 3 of them, Obsessions of the Invader. Either Best of the Best, add 1 to your attack characteristic of your melee weapons if you're within 6 of a hero. Glory Hog, at the end of the combat phase, if an enemy unit was destroyed in the phase and this general is on the battlefield, get a command point. And Hurler of Obscenities, at the start of the combat phase, you can pick an enemy unit within 6 of the general. Until the end of that phase, add 1 to hit rolls for attacks made by that unit, but subtract 1 from save rolls for attacks made by that unit. So, yeah, the extra heroic actions is cool. I don't particularly care for any of those command traits, but they're all you get. The +1 attacks if you're next to a hero is pretty cool. The -1 save and +1 hit's kind of not great. I guess it's not bad if they haven't fought yet, because it's on the enemy, right? So you have to pick someone within 6 of you, and they get +1 to hit you, but they're -1 save, so you can reduce their save even if it's unmodifiable, I guess, because it's... No, it is subtract 1 from save rolls, so unmodifiable saves don't even get affected by it. And the command point one's just whatever. Artifacts, you get the Rod of Misrule. Keep track of the number of unmodified hit rolls of 6 and unmodified wound rolls of 6 for attacks made by the bearer each turn. At the end of the battle shock phase, if the total is 6 or more, and the bearers on the battlefield get a depravity point. And then Icon of Infinite Excess. So you'd have to make 36 dice rolls, by the way, for that to happen. So in a turn, you'd have to make 36 dice rolls statistically to get 6 hits and wounds. Like, just for the math for that to sink in for a second. Like, I don't know. You'd have to make, you'd have to make 18 attack rolls, then 18 hit rolls, 18 wound rolls. Because there's nothing there for saves. Yeah, you get, that Rod of Misrule is going to do nothing. It's very unlikely you ever get a depravity point for it. It's 1 depravity point out of 36. I guess at the end of each battle shock, I guess they would escalate. At the end of the battle shock phase, if the total is 6 or more of the bearers on the battlefield, you get depravity points. You get from then on every battle shock phase once you got there. But you'd be making, it's like, it's very unlikely that it's going to matter because it's 1 depravity point and you've had to have made 36 rolls at that point to do it. And then the Icon of Infinite Excess. Once per battle at the start of the combat phase, you can say that the bearer will plant the icon. If you do so, add 1 of the attack characteristic of friendly Hedonite units on the battlefield until the end of the phase. So +1 attack for the battle, or for once per battle. Beguiling Gem at the start of the combat phase. Pick an enemy hero within 3 of the bearer and roll 3d6. If the roll is greater than the hero's bravery characteristic, subtract 1 from the attack characteristic of that hero's melee weapons until the end of the phase. It's not once per battle. It's the only one I think is kind of worth it. The Icon of Infinite Excess is once per battle. The Rod of Misrule is like kind of just insignificant. Like, you will eventually get 6 6s. And then for the rest of the game, which might be like 4 or 5 more phases, you'll get 1 depravity point. I just feel like it's not it's not super worth it. Like, there's 10 battle shock phases in a game, right? So you need to have gotten 36 hit or wound rolls in. And like, so to get 36 hit and wound rolls, or first you have to get, if you get them most efficiently, you have to hit every time 18 times, and then for a potential to roll those further 18 6s on the wound rolls. Yeah, it's really not. It's not super likely. So yeah, the Beguiling Gem is the one I'd take because I have to take one. It's worth taking to try and debuff heroes. And again, some armies it's just not going to work against because they're being leadership like 10. Spell lores, the Lore of the Despoiler. Lash of Slaanesh, cast on 6, range 12, pick an enemy unit, in range invisible, and roll a number of dice equal to the number of the models in that unit. For every 5+, subtract 1 from the attack characteristic of that unit's melee weapons to a minimum of 1. The Pavane of Slaanesh is a spell that has a casting value of 6 and a range of 12. If successfully cast, pick one enemy unit within range invisible to the caster and roll a number of dice equal to the unit's move characteristic. For each 5+, subtract 1 from the unit's move to the minimum of 1 for the rest of the battle. The same unit cannot be affected more than once. But their move is... Like, imagine you roll for like a movement 8 unit. You're going to knock 3 inches off their movement for the rest of the battle. That's crazy. And then Hysterical Frenzy, cast on 6, range 18. Pick an enemy unit within range invisible. And roll a number of dice equal to that unit's bravery. For every 6, they take D3 mortal wounds. So the braver they are, the more they go insane and attack each other. I think that's crazy. So yeah, this is kind of the heroically driven one with like multiple generals, kind of lackluster command abilities, kind of lackluster artifacts. And the spells are okay. Like the spells are probably the most okay part because they're all debuffy spells. So -1 attack, minus movement, minus, and then like the higher the bravery, the more they attack each other. I think that's pretty cool. All right, Pretenders. They are the heirs to the thrones. Their battle traits are heirs to the throne. If the model picked to be your general is a Pretender's hero, receive 3 command points instead of 1 at the start of the hero phase. So, wow. A lot of, you're going to be swimming in command points. Warlord Supreme. If the model picked to be your general is a Pretender's hero, they can issue the same command up to 3 times in the same phase. If they do so, each command must be received by a friendly Pretender's unit, and no command points are spent for the second and third times you issue them. So, you have 3 command points per turn, and you can go 1 command point, bam, 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 like all at attack. 1 command point, bam, 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 all at defense, the reactive turn. That's crazy per phase. I like compare that to like, hey, someone else could be the general and have one of these lackluster command traits, and someone else could do this extra heroic action. Holy crap, the Pretenders are so much better. Like, even just using core, like, command traits and stuff like that, +1 hit and stuff like that, that's so good, comparatively speaking. Command traits, artifacts, you've got Strongest Alone. Add 1 to the hit and wound rolls for this general while they're more than 6 from all other friendly units. So great to put onto a big monster unit. And then Monarch of Lies, roll a d6, roll a dice each time an enemy unit receives a command within 6. On a 5+, the command's not received. And the command point is still spent. And then Strength of Godhood. If this general issues a command to a different friendly Hedonites Slaanesh unit until the end of the turn, improve the rank characteristic of this general's melee weapons by 1, and add 1 to the damage characteristic of this general's melee weapons. Yeah, Cancel Orders is great. I think just +1 to hit and wound for being by yourself is pretty amazing too. And then Shout commands everywhere. All right, Artifacts of Power, the Regalia of the Rightful Heir. This is the other Pretender's Hero one. So those were the command traits before. Now we're into Artifacts of Power. Oh, Aspects of the Perfect Liege. That's what the first one's. That's why I thought it was Artifacts already. The Crown of Dark Secrets. At the start of your first hero phase, pick 1 enemy unit in the battlefield for the rest of the battle. While that unit's within 6 of the bearer, the attack characteristic of their melee weapons is improved by 1. Oh, sorry, reduced by 1. At the start of your first hero phase, pick an enemy unit on the battlefield for the rest of the battle. While that unit is within 6 of the bearer, the attack characteristic of that unit's melee weapons is 1. Oh geez, it's reduced to 1. I was having a hard time reading what that meant. Yeah, so take someone with 5 attacks, they have 1 attack while they're within 6 of them. Take that, Mega Gargants. Oh, how many Fort Crusher flail attacks do you have? Too bad it's 1 while you're fighting me, because you just can't do it. Oh my god, that's so good. The Scepter of Dominion. At the start of the combat phase, roll a dice for each enemy unit within 3 inches of the bearer. On a 5+, the strike last effective flies. So it's kind of like a Tree Man Stomp. And then Breathtaker, pick one of the bearer's melee weapons. If the enemy model is slain by an attack made by that weapon, all effects that would be triggered when that model is slain are ignored. So if you explode whatever, you're just dead. I think the Crown of Dark Secrets kind of wins here. The Stomp is cool too, though, because it's every unit within 3, not pick a unit. So 5+, you strike last. I mean, defensive and offensive buff. They're both defensive buffs technically, but reduce all the melee attacks to 1 while you want to be in melee with strongest alone. Oh my god. Like, this one's all about mechanical power, right? Like, you're good at leading and you're mechanically super powerful. And then your 3 spells. Soul Slice Shards, cast on 5, range 12, pick a visible enemy unit, and roll 2d6. If it's greater than their bravery, they cannot issue or receive commands until your next hero phase. Another good debuff. So if you don't want to take the no commands command trait, take the strongest alone command trait, then take the spell and cast it. Phantasmagoria. It's a spell that has a casting value of 5 and a range of 12. Pick an enemy unit within range invisible. Until your next hero phase, each time that unit's picked to fight, you can pick a friendly Hedonites or Slaanesh unit within 3, and that friendly unit can retreat. So basically, pick someone not in melee with the unit that's about to fight, and they just back off. If successfully cast, pick an enemy unit within range invisible to the caster. Until your next hero phase, each time that unit is picked to fight, you can pick a friendly Hedonites or Slaanesh unit within 3 of the unit, and that friendly unit can retreat. So someone fighting just runs away and they don't get to fight anymore. That's incredibly powerful, especially with the high movement on some of your units. Like, you're in combat with a giant unit, and let's say you fly or count as flying, and then they are about to attack you, and you just go 10 inches away, and it's like, meh, they could pile in 3, but where do they go? And they can't fight you anymore. And then Born of Damnation, cast on 6, roll 6 dice for every 4+, get a depravity point. Just build depravity points. Oh man. Yeah, and compare that, just a 6+ spell for 6 4+ depravity points, to you gotta roll 36 dice before you start rolling 1 depravity point per battle shock phase. Yeah, just every one of your casting phases, you on average get 3 dice, or 3 depravity points. Yeah, I'm having a hard time comparing Pretenders to Invaders. Like, it's just better. Like, they're just better. They could have spread out those abilities between all 3 factions, but they gave them all to Pretenders. Godseekers. So this is your basically like your Chariot army, because it's all the Godseeker stuff, right? You can reroll. Well, it's about speed. I shouldn't say it's a Chariot army. I would probably build it with fast units because it's all about speed. So Thundering Cavalcade, you can reroll charge rolls for friendly Godseekers units while they're wholly within 12 inches of a friendly Godseekers hero. At the start of each battle round, Maniacal Hunters, before the players receive their starting command points, you can move D3 friendly Godseekers units that are more than 3 up to D6 inches. And those units must finish the move more than 3 from the enemy. So you basically just get like a free D6 inch move before you get your command points. So at the start of each battle round, after you've determined who's going first, before you get to command points. So you know who's got the initiative, but you don't have your command points yet, and now you can move a bunch of D3 units D6 inches. Could be super powerful. Command traits, there's 3 of them. Into the fray, strike first when you charge. Speed Chaser. After the general makes their charge move, you can pick 1 enemy unit within 1 of the general and roll a number of dice equal to the roll for the charge move. For each 4+, they take mortal wounds. You get impact hits like ogres. And then Hunter Supreme, it's like Beef Supreme. Monster only, each unit within 3 inches of this general cannot make pile-in moves if this general made a charge move in the same turn. In addition, add 1 of their attack characteristic of their melee weapons if they charge. So Hunter Supreme is cool because you have to be a monster, so obviously you have to keep our secrets. Speed Chaser, just anytime you do mortal wounds on charge is great, and Into the Fray, you get strike first when you charge. All of these are good. Like, Godseekers isn't bad. I think probably Pretenders is mechanically more versatile, with like the fact they get 3 command points and then maybe 4 if they're going second, and also can get free 3 commands per commands issued, which is crazy. And then also the mechanical power of like their command traits and their artifacts, which is fantastic, and their spell list. But the Godseekers have cool abilities too. Now, their artifacts and spells, their speed stuff is pretty versatile for playing the mission. Again, it just makes Invaders seem not very good. Cameo of the Dark Prince. Once per battle at the start of your hero phase, you can say the bearer will gaze upon the cameo. It's this cool picture of them. If you do so until the end of the phase, the turn, the bearer can issue commands to friendly Hedonites without command points being spent. So once per battle, just issue free commands. And so remember, issue free commands, can issue 3 commands when you issue a command, and you can just issue commands. So like basically once per battle, you just get to issue, everyone gets all the commands all the time. The Threnody voice box. Once per battle at the start of the combat phase, you can say the bearer will play their melody. If you do so, until the end of the phase, subtract 1 from the attack characteristic of melee weapons used by enemy units within 6 of the bearer. And then Girdle of the Realm Racer. The bearer can fly. In addition, the bearer is eligible to fight in the combat phase if they're within 6 instead of within 3, and they can pile in 6 instead of 3. So, again, speed and commando stuff, and then debuffing. I like all the straight debuffs, the other one, though. And then Lore of the Pursuer. Paths to the Dark Prince. It's a spell with a casting value of 5. If cast, roll 3d6 instead of 2d6 when you charge, until your next hero phase. Progeny of Damnation. It casts on 5, range 12. Pick a friendly Hedonite Slaanesh unit wholly within range invisible until the next phase. If they finish a normal move, run or retreat within 9 of any enemy units, those units cannot receive the redeployed command. Again, situationally useful, but you're all about speed and trying to catch the enemy, so that's a useful spell. And then Slothful Stupor. Cast on 7, range 12. Pick an enemy unit within range invisible. Until the next hero phase, the move characteristic of that unit is 3, and all run rolls and charge rolls for that unit are treated as being 3. So just pin down, like, these guys are the really, really good at pinning down, like, small number, MSU armies, basically. Small, powerful numbers of units armies. They're gonna do good against. So, I think, of the 3 of them, just ranking them, like, the Pretenders are way better than the Invaders. There's nothing wrong with playing the speed army for the Godseekers, and the Invaders are just like, I don't know why you would take them. I mean, you could probably make a list, but they don't have a clear path to like what they're trying to do the way the other ones do. And I don't like army presentation being like this. I would prefer they just made up 3 different hosts and had host abilities and then had core universal rules, because I think this is exactly the problem that this leads to, where one of the hosts gets the best mix, the other one's kind of okay, the third one's just like, but why? We didn't come up with anything that was thematically as powerful, and there's a clear kind of best winner, a best in show, if you will. I might be totally wrong, people might disagree with me, but I feel like there's that's the reason you don't do this. That's why you let everything mix with everything else and just put the good stuff in and cut out all the chaff, because I feel there's a bunch of chaff abilities in here because they needed to fill out 3 hosts, and meh. Yeah, Path to Glory. Guess what? You're trying to make people do terrible things to each other, and you're going to earn depravity points to do it, and that's great. Match play rules. All right, grand strategies. I have yet to like... I've struggled with all of the grand strategies in these books. There's only been a few books so far where the grand strategies I thought have been actually viable. They've either been way too easy and like no-brainer to what the army does, or they've relied on you doing other things, and all of them seem to have one where it wants you to do what's in this book and play thematically, and some of it's just way too hard to do or not. Like the Bloodbound's a good example of it, where like it's so like situationally dependent upon or the Blades of Corn, sorry, situationally dependent upon what your opponent has brought or is doing, that they're hard to get off. All right, well, let's talk about these ones. So for your Grand Vanities, you can pick one of 4. The first one is Coveted Riches. When the battle ends, you complete this grand strategy if there's no enemy units that have artifacts of power on the battlefield, and there's more than one friendly unit that has artifacts of power on the battlefield. So basically kill the enemy heroes and have somebody survive. Sure, okay, yep. Arch Tempter. When the battle ends, you complete this grand strategy if you offer a temptation dice to your opponent for the same enemy unit 6 times or more during the battle. That could be incredibly easy to do or incredibly hard to do. Because one, that unit has to survive 6 player turns, which means to at least the 3rd battle round, and has to have done something that required them to make a hit roll or a wound roll every turn. So maybe a shooting unit you would do this to if your opponent has a shooting unit, because they'll probably be shooting every single turn. But you have to present them a target to shoot, and they can just deny you this by not doing anything with them 1 turn, right? And not fighting or not falling. Like, there seems like ways around it, or just sacrificing them and having them die before you can get it to actually finish. It has to be the same unit. It would be really good against an army reliant on a big character. So it would be really good if someone's bringing Nagash or Teclis or any giant, like my army's built around this character Kragnos, you know what I mean? Like the temptation thing you'd almost, if you're playing in a meta where that's going to be the case, then you would almost always probably take this one because you're just going to always offer one of those guys who's doing something every round a temptation dice and then just get your 3 points at the end. Selfish Desire. When the battle ends, you complete this grand strategy if you did not summon any units using the summon demoning trait during the battle. Cool. Yeah, I don't know if, like, because it doesn't say that you spend your points, it just says that there's a cost to doing so and you have to have enough points to do it. But it doesn't say you reduce the pool in there. I don't know. I guess you just play down then? Why wouldn't, if it doesn't cost you anything and doesn't reduce your score, then why wouldn't you? I think this needs an FAQ because that makes me think that you do spend them now, although there's no reference to actually doing it. It says there's a cost, but that just means you have to have enough. Doesn't mean that you actually reduce the pool. I don't know. And you've always reduced the pool before, but this makes me feel like you're just trying to play under somehow. And then Gluttony for Depravity. When the battle ends, you complete this grand strategy if you have 36 or more unspent depravity points. Just means you have to get all your depravity points. Yeah. I mean, the Glutton for Depravity, you're trying to do it anyway, so why would you not just do that? Because you're going to offer dice. But Arch Tempter might be even easier to control because you're just going to offer dice to like a big character every turn. All right, Battle Tactics, Methods of Torture. I do like that for once there isn't to like do 4 of these from the Battle Tactics list to get your extra grand strategy. Death by 1,000 cuts. Pick an enemy unit. You complete this tactic if wounds caused by attacks made by 3 or more different friendly units were allocated to that unit during this turn. Yeah, if you've got like a multi-melee going on, then sure. An Enrapturing Blur, pick an enemy hero that has 0 wounds allocated to it. You complete this tactic if that unit's destroyed in the combat phase before it's picked to fight. That's cool. The Grand Feast, you complete this tactic if you gain 12 or more depravity points from the Euphoric Killer's battle trait during this turn. Sure, you have to do 12 wounds with the unit. Excessive Carnage, pick an enemy unit that is contesting an objective. You complete this tactic if you pick the unit as using the Euphoric Killer's battle trait. And that unit is destroyed during this turn. So Excessive Carnage feels good because you're just trying to kill something to death. Grand Feast feels harder because you have to do 12 wounds. Realm Racers, complete this tactic of 3 or more friendly Hedonites / units made a charge move of 7 or more during the turn. That's cool. Although you need to roll it. Most of your banners are gonna, it doesn't say unmodified, so that's actually usually a 6+ roll if they have a banner. Because most of the banners are musicians, give them +1. Not banners, musicians. Give them +1 to charge. And then Depraved Unity, pick one objective that you do not control. You complete this tactic if you control the objective at the end of the turn, and at least one friendly Hedonites / mortal unit and a friendly demon unit are contesting that objective. So, I like that one. I like Realm Racers. I like Excessive Carnage because you're trying to do it anyway. You could control Death by 1,000 cuts. You could control an Enrapturing Blade. These are actually pretty good. As far as battle tactics go, as like achievability goes, the way you're going to build a Slaanesh army, they feel fairly achievable. The only one I'm kind of iffy on is the Grand Feast, because there has to be 12 more wounds left in the unit that you're going to pick to euphorically kill, and you have to get all 12 of those wounds, and that might not be the easiest thing ever. All right, well, let's get into some War Scrolls, starting with the greatest of all big guys, and that is the Keeper of Secrets. The last Battletome came out, the Keeper of Secrets was like the most popular miniature, I think, of the release. And it was great. Or maybe it was 2 ago now? It's been a minute. But that Keeper of Secrets miniature, I think it was fairly new, and it's pretty great. So it gained 2 wounds, a lot like the Bloodthirster did. It's still got a 4+ save and 10 bravery. 14 goes to 8 wound. Its wound chart's condensed to 0 to 8, 9 to 10, 11 to 12, 13 plus. It goes 14, 12, 10, 8 for movement. And then claws is 5, 4, 3, 2. So same top and bottom, just condensed. Living Whip, D6 attacks instead of 1. That's nice. And it can cast 2 on bind 2. The Ritual Knife or Sinistrous Hand is the same now. 2+, 3+, -1/1 damage. Elegant Greatblade is 2-inch range, 4 attacks, flat all the time. 3s and 3s, -1/2 damage. And the Impaling Claws start at damage 5 and go down. 2 attacks, 3s and 3s, -2. So they're basically the same. Let's look at some special rules. Excessive violence. Once you're about the combat phase, if any friendly units and their ability are on the battlefield, pick a different Hedonites Slaanesh unit that is wholly within 12 of a friendly unit with this ability, and that is fought already. They can fight for a second time, but strike last. Cool. So you get someone to fight twice. And just not this unit. And it has no other restrictions. So you could have 2 Keepers of Secrets do this to each other and fight 4 times per turn. In a single turn, once per battle. And then Living Whip. If this unit's armed with a Living Whip, at the start of the combat phase, you can pick an enemy unit within 6 of the unit and roll a dice. On a 2+, subtract 1 from the attack's characteristic of that unit's melee weapons to a minimum of 1 until the end of that phase. The same unit cannot be affected by this ability more than once per phase. Ritual Knife. If this unit's armed with a Ritual Knife, pick an enemy model within 1 inch. On a 2+, the unit suffers a number of mortal wounds equal to the roll. Huh. That's crazy. Just end of the combat phase. Hey you, 2+, take 6 mortal wounds. And then the Sinistrous Hand, reaching out for the bladed talons. If this unit's armed with a Sinistrous Hand, at the start of the combat phase, or the end of the combat phase, if any enemy units were slain by wounds caused by this unit's attacks in that phase, you can heal up to 3 wounds allocated to this unit. If any enemy heroes were slain, you can allocate 6 instead. And the Shining Aegis gives you a ward save of 5+. Delicate Precision, unmodified wound rolls of 6. They cause number of mortal wounds equal to the damage characteristic, and the attack sequence ends. And then Dark Temptations. Once per turn at the start of the combat phase, if any friendly units with this ability are on the battlefield, you can pick an enemy unit within 3 of a friendly unit with this ability. If you do so, your opponent must choose whether the unit gives up or resists temptation. If it resists, they take D3 mortal wounds. If it gives in, you get D3 depravity points. He can make you more depravity points. He whispers you a terrible offer. And then Cacophonic Choir. It's a spell that has a casting value of 6 and a range of 6. If cast, roll 2d6. Each enemy unit within range that has a bravery characteristic less than that roll suffers D3 mortal wounds, and you roll separately for each unit. So, I mean, the Keeper of Secrets is still great. His core abilities are kind of the same, but his wound track, him bracketing at 8 instead of at 4, is huge. Like, he had basically the 2 top brackets have been taken off and hammered into the core of the rest of it. And then 2 extra wounds is great too. I don't know which build I like the best though. I love the self-healing with the Sinistrous Hand. And it's armed with either with an Elegant Great Blade and Impaling Talons. And you get to pick one of either the Whip for minus attacks, the Ritual Knife for mortal wounds, and the Sinistrous Hand. The Ritual Knife is so powerful now. Just pick an enemy model within 1 inch and do basically D6 mortal wounds, unless you roll a 1. But that healing 3 as well, like, there's no real built-in healing apart from taking a breath, which you do when you're out of combat, and you kind of don't want to be out of combat. So I like it all. I think they're all really good. And then the fact that you could double down and have them go fight 4 times between 2 of them once per turn. All right, Shalaxi Hellbane. Here's our character here. She's got 2 extra wounds now. She's armed with Living Whip. Her Soul Piercer is 3s and 2s core now instead of 2s and 2s. Minus 3, D3 plus 3. So more consistent damage. Impaling Claws the same as and the stat line are the same as the core Keeper Secrets. Wizard, Cast Heal and Bind 2's the same. Living Whip's the same. Shining Aegis is the same. Cloak of Constriction. Subtract 1 from hit rolls and wound rolls for attacks made by melee weapons that target this unit. Delicate Precision's the same. Irresistible Challenge. At the start of the enemy charge phase, pick an enemy hero within 12 and more than 3 from the other friendly units. If you do so, your opponent must choose whether that hero accepts or refuses Shalaxi's challenge. If they refuse, take D3 mortal wounds. If they accept, that hero must attempt to charge and must finish charge move within ½ inch of this unit. If they can't do it, then they take D3 mortal wounds instead. And then the Killing Stroke. At the start of the combat phase, you can pick one enemy hero within 3 of this unit. If you do so, all attacks made by this unit must target that hero. But the damage characteristic of its Soul Piercer is 6 instead of D3 plus 3. And then Refined Senses as a spell that has a casting value of 4. If cast until your next hero phase, add 1 to the hit rolls and wound rolls for attacks made by the caster that target enemies' heroes, and add 1 to save rolls for attacks made by the enemy heroes that target the caster. So you get +1 save, and they take a +1 to hit, +1 to hit and wound from you, which is crazy. All right, and then we're into the new Sinessa, the voice of Slaanesh, who's the big, cool sort of like floaty wizard character. Gained a wound. No, wait, lost a wound from 10 to 9. And then her other core stats are the same. Staff of Slaanesh. Got a 18-inch range, 1 attack, and then like a special stat line, which is do not use the attack sequence for this. Instead, pick an enemy unit within range invisible and roll a number of dice for that unit. Sorry, roll a dice for that unit. If the roll is less than their save characteristic, they take 6 mortal wounds. If it's equal or greater than their save characteristic, they take 3 mortal wounds instead. So just mortal wounds, no matter what. And then her impaling talons are the only weapon she has now. It's 2 attacks, 3s and 3s, -2 damage. So the same as it was. She still flies. She's a War Master, so she doesn't eat up your hero choice. And someone else can still be the general. Wizard for cast 1 on bind 1. Your -1 to hit her for mesmerizing Lepidoptera. And then she's the voice of Slaanesh. Once per turn, this unit can issue a command to a friendly Hedonites unit on the battlefield with a command point being spent, and then Whispers of Doubt, which is if a spell that has a casting value of 6 is successfully cast, pick an enemy hero visible to the caster and within 3d6. If the roll is equal to or greater than their bravery characteristic, add 1 to hit rolls and wound rolls for attacks that target them until the end of the next hero phase, because they just like, their brain breaks. And then Dexessa, the Talon of Slaanesh, which is the fighting version of her. Oh no, I was looking at Dexessa. That's why. I was like, why does she not have her Scourge of Slaanesh? I was looking at Dexessa. That's because I looked at the picture when I pulled up the app instead of looking at the other thing. The core stats are still the same, actually. That's why she has 1 less wound. That's why I was confused. Dexessa has 10 wounds. Slaanesh still has 9 wounds. She's the same as she was, I'm pretty sure. Oh, that's why. Yeah, because I went with the picture and I didn't see the name. Yeah, they're exactly the same. I beefed that. Whoops. Dexessa's core stats are the same. Scourge of Slaanesh is looking the same. Impaling Talons are exactly the same. Fleeting Dance is the same. Can fly. Is still War Master. Joyous Battle Fury. After seeing it's fought for the first time, at the start of each battle round, add 1 to the attack characteristic of this unit's weapons for the rest of the battle, and the effect is cumulative. The mesmerizing Lepidoptera, which is still -1 to hit, and then Scepter of Slaanesh. Don't take Battleshock tests for friendly Hedonites of Slaanesh demons within 12 of this unit. In addition, once per turn, you can issue a candidate demon unit without a command point being spent. I love those miniatures too. They're so cool. All right, we're into Sylesk, the twins. Master Blaster, sort of. she's kind of a Master Blaster. Core stats are the same. Axe of Dominion, 4 attacks, 3s and 3s now, -2d3 damage. That's nice. And the Scourging Whip is 8 attacks, 3s and 3s, -1, 2 damage as well. So increasing the damage on the whip, which is that's a really high damage output. You're looking at 16 plus 12, so 28 potential wounds out of that one model. Especially with the amount of like, hey, pick this unit, everything's +1 to hit and wound against it. Okay, so now I'm just 2s and 2s with everything. -2 or -1 damage, and then just a bajillion like D3 or 2 damage hits. Yeah, she could be a real blender. She casts 1, dispels 1, is a War Master. Deadly Symbiosis looks like it is not the same, because there's no rerolling hit rolls anymore. If the number of friendly Hedonites of Slaanesh mortal units wholly within 18 of this unit is equal to the number of other friendly Hedonites of Slaanesh demon units wholly within 18, add 1 to hit rolls and wound rolls for attacks made with melee weapons by friendly Hedonites of Slaanesh units wholly within 18 of this unit. So if you have like 1 mortal unit hanging out with 1 demon unit next to them, they're going to be hitting at +1 to hit and +1 to wound as well. Oh man, and everybody else is too. That's a crazy combo. You just got to make sure there's like a pack of demonettes hanging out behind her and then some big fat mortal unit to lead them in. And everyone's +1/+1. As long as it's equal to. So you just make them their own little unit. You run them forward, and then she runs in and blenderizes everything. That's really good. She can run still charge. She has Vengeful Allegiance. If the unmodified save roll for an attack made by the melee weapon that targets this unit to 6, they take a mortal wound. And then Subvert, cast on 7, range 18. Pick an enemy unit within range. Invisible to the caster, and the unit cannot issue or receive commands until your next hero phase. So she can turn off commands too. Yeah, she's great. Oh man, she's real good. Celeste's real good, especially considering that she can create her own like 2s and 2s buff. One of my favorite miniatures Games Workshop has ever made, the Contorted Epitome. What a great, gross, weird miniature. It's almost as good as, well, it's great. My favorite one, my absolute favorite miniature of the last little while is the Infernal and Rapturous. That is just some David Lynch body horror right there. All right, the Contorted Epitome. Core stats are the same. Looks like Piercing Claws are the same. Coiled Tentacles are the same. Gift of Power, same. Swallow Energy, same. 2+ Mortal Wound Negation. Horrible Fascination. Any units within 3 of any friendly units with this ability cannot issue or receive commands. In addition, any units within 3 of any other friendly units with this ability cannot retreat. And then Overwhelming Acquiescence, cast on 6, range 24. If successfully cast, pick D3 different enemy units within range invisible. Add 1 to wound rolls for attacks that target those units until the next hero phase. There's so many ways to buff your units up against like a specific unit. There's a lot of violence coming out of these demons. And then the Infernal and Rapturous. Oh my god, it's so good. It's so Existence. It's weird Hellraiser body horror. Core stats are the same. The Heartstring Lyre with the Cacophonous Melody. 6 attacks, 3s and 4s, -1 damage is the same. And then the Euphonic Blast is 1 attack, 2s and 2s now, so 2+ to hit, and then -3d3 damage. Okay, so still a little bit better, buff the wound roll. And then Discordant Disruption. If a casting roll for an enemy wizard within 24 of this unit, that casting roll must be re-rolled if it's successful. And if the re-rolled casting roll is a double or a 1, that's a miscast. Or if the total of the re-rolled casting roll is a 6. If the re-rolled casting roll is a double, or if one of the casting of the dice in the re-rolled casting dice is a 6, sorry. That wizard suffers D3 mortal wounds, and after the effects are resolved. So successfully cast, they have to re-roll it, and if the re-rolled casting roll is a double, or if one of those dice is a 6, then they take D3 mortal wounds, and the spell still goes off. And then Versatile Instrument. Each time this unit shoots, choose one of the 2 different weapon types. The Mask. All right. Has she changed at all? We're looking at the Mask. Core stats are the same. Gain to wound and gain to damage. So she wounds on 3s with 2 damage now. The Staff Masks. At the start of your hero phase, you can either add 3 to attack characteristics against melee weapons until your next hero phase, or heal up to 3 wounds. That's great. Lithe and Swift can run and still charge. Endless Dance. After deployment, before the first battle round begins, you can remove this unit from the battlefield. If you do so, set them up anywhere within your opponent's territory, more than 3 from all enemy units, and then a 4+ ward. Inhuman Reflexes. She's a cool little like go have her hunt those little supporting units, or those little baby units that are always going after contest objectives. You know, like she could run off and hunt down like a unit of Sylvaneth, like a 5-man unit of like core battle line Sylvaneth Pipers, whatever they're called, the Revenants, right? Tree Revenants. Like she's just great at like cleaning up little units, and the fact that she can just heal by herself just by choosing to at the start of the hero phase, and she has a 4+ ward save, makes her super durable for a 5 wound, 5+ save model. All right, we're into Chariot heroes now. The Blade Bringer and the Seeker Chariot. We're almost there. Blade Bringer. Core stats. She lost. Okay, hang on. Blade Bringer, Herald on Exalted Chariot. No, this is on Seeker Chariot. That's why. I hate that. I hate that they're different. Same core stats. 6 attacks, 3s and 4s, -1. Gain to damage to 2 damage. Piercing claws. Gain an attack to 4 attacks. Poison tongues. Stayed the same. Still a wizard. Cast 1 on bind 1. Still has crew. Mutilating blade. After the unit finishes a charge move, pick an enemy unit within 1. 2+ does D3 mortal wounds. Thrill Seeker. While friendly Seeker Chariot units are wholly within 12 of any friendly units with this ability, add 1 to the number of mortal wounds caused by their mutilating blades. So she ups all the chariots. Again, this is why I said Chariot faction with the God Seekers, whichever the third host is, because they're going to play into this really well. They can retreat and still charge. Acquiescence, cast on 5, range 18, pick an enemy unit within range invisible, add 1 to wound rolls for attacks that target that unit until the next hero phase. So many ways to add to wound rolls, it's crazy. And then just the base Seeker Chariot, which is a other unit. 12-inch move, core stats the same. Flensing Whip's the same. Poison Tongue's the same. Piercing Claw's the same. Yeah. Retreat and still charge. Does the D3 impact hits, just like the non-hero version. All right, the Hellflare, which is the one with like they bought the upgraded attachment. She is a Blade Bringer, Herald on Hellflare. Core stats are the same. Also gain to damage on a Ravaging Claws. Piercing Claws and Flensing Whips are the same. Poison Tongues are the same. Soul Set, sort of the combat phase, roll a dice for each enemy unit within 1 inch of this unit. On a 4+, they take D3 mortal wounds. In addition, for each 4+, add 1 to the attack characteristic of this unit's melee weapons until the end of the phase. If that enemy unit has 10 or more models, this happens on a 3 instead, because she's just driving the lawnmower around. Like, with her big giant blades. Slavering for sensation. While friendly Hellflare units are wholly within 12 of any friendly units with this ability, add 1 to the roll to determine whether their Soul Send ability causes any mortal wounds. So everybody else gets +1, so instead of 4+, it's 3+. And then Acquiescence is the same spell. And Hellflares are the same, core stats. Piercing Whips are the same. Has Soul Send as well. And those will be on 3s all the time. And then your Blade Bringer on Exalted Chariot. Did your core stuff change? Because now we're on the Hellflare. Of course, that's the same. Gain to damage on the Flensing Whips. Piercing Claws are the same. Poison Tongues are the same. Soul Gorgers. This unit can issue the same command up to 2 times in the same phase, and if it does so, there's no extra commands as long as it's received by a friendly Exalted Chariot. And no extra points to cast it. Or issue it, sorry. Excessive Blades. After the unit finishes a charge move, you can pick 1 enemy unit within 1 inch of this unit and roll a number of dice equal to the charge roll for that charge move. For each roll that's greater than the unit's save characteristic, that unit suffers a mortal wound. And then Acquiescence is a spell that has a casting value of 5 and a range of 18. If cast, pick an enemy unit within range invisible. Add 1 to wound rolls for attacks that target that unit until the next hero phase. Sweet. And then the Exalted Chariot is the same core stats. Added damage to the Flensing Whips. Has Excessive Blades as well. And then Bitter Frenzy. Roll a dice for each time the unit receives a command from a friendly Blade Bringer's Exalted unit. On a 4+, add 1 of the damage characteristic of their Flensing Whips until the end of the turn. So they'd be damaged 3 Flensing Whips if they get a command on a 4+. All right, the Vice Leader. Are you Crockett or Tubbs, Vice Leader? You're gaining Vice Leader. Same core stats. Gain to damage, so damage 2 instead of damage 1. Can retreat and still charge. Lust for Violence. In the combat phase, when you pick this unit to fight for the first time in the phase, you can pick a friendly Demonette house unit within 12 and they can chain activate. They have a 5+ ward, and they can cast Acquiescence for +1 to wound. All right, Demonettes, you did not get the glow up that Bloodletters got, unfortunately, which means you do not have 2 wounds, even though you're also demonic. So 1 wound still, but you're relatively cheap. Musician lets you reroll failed battle chalk. You get +1 to run charge rolls for your banner bearer. Icon bearers bring back guys on a 5+ when you rally. And retreat and still charge. Your core stats, you gain to hit. So you're still 2 attacks, 1 inch range, but you're 3s and 4s with -1 damage. And there's lots of acquiescence out there to increase your 2 wound rolls. And you get your precision hits, so you do mortal wounds on 6s. I mean, I think you're still good, and you're cheaper than Demonettes are, than Bloodletters are, sorry. All right, your Fiends. Fiends of Slaanesh. Great miniatures, same core stats. Weapons, they dropped an attack, but they're 3s and 3s with D3 damage now for the Deadly Pincers. So 3 attacks, 3s and 3s, -1 D3 damage. And the Barbed Stinger is 1 attack, 3s and 3s, -2. So it gained a rend. And it's Deadly Venom. If a target of an attack made with the Barbed Stinger has a wound characteristic of 1, the weapon has a damage characteristic of 1. If the target of the attack has made with Barbed Stinger has a wound characteristic of 2 to 3, it's D3. And if it has a wound characteristic of 4 or more, it has D6. So basically, the bigger the thing you're fighting, the more likely you are to kill it, which I think is amazing. It's not for sure, because it's always random damage, but you scale with the thing you're fighting, which is pretty cool. And it's the same as it was. It actually is not new. Disruptive Song, -1 to casting rolls. While they're within 12 any friendly units with this ability. So Perfect Musk, -1 to hit and wound rolls for attacks with melee weapons. It's basically the same. So a bit of a stat increase. And then Seekers. Same core stats. Piercing Claws. Gained a nothing. Nope, they're exactly the same. Banner Bearers +1 to run, run charge. Icon Bearers is a rally on a 5/6 instead of a 6, sorry. And then reroll failed Battle Shock for Musicians. Soul Hunters, end of the combat phase. If any enemy models with a wound characteristic of 2 or more were slain by wounds caused by this unit's attacks, add 1 of their attack characteristics for the rest of the battle. And they run 2d6 and they can run and still charge. And then it's Glutos or Scullion. Oh, Glutos. I do love this miniature. He was cool and weird. And I like his ogres, his weird mutant ogres that are pulling him around. His core stats are pretty much the same. His Leer Stave is got a stat line now. It's just 12-inch range, 1 attack, 2+2+, 6 damage. Huh. The Wailing Greatblade on his champion is the same. His Flaying Scourge gained an attack, so it's 3 attacks now with a 2-inch range. Sacrificial Dagger is 3s and 4s instead of 4s and 3s now with 1 damage. And then Crushing Claws on the Ogres, 3s and 3s -2, 3 damage. They gained a rend. His stat line is compressed again, so 0 to 8, 9 to 11, 12 to 14, 15 plus. His move goes 8, 6, 5, 4, and his Crushing Claws are 5, 4, 3, 2. They start at 5 attacks. So they start off with less attacks than they did. They had 6 attacks before. Cast 2 on Bind 2. He's got a mount for his big panoply. And then the crew, the Palanquin, has a crew armed with a Wailing Greatblade, Flaying Scourge, and Sacrificial Dagger. He has a 5+ ward. He's -1 to hit roll for attacks made by enemy units within 12 of him. He's the Grand Gourmand. He gains an ability based on each battle round. Battle round 1, Aperitif. Add 1 of the bravery characteristic of mortal Slaanesh units within 12 of him. Battle round 2, Starter. The unit can run and still charge later in the turn. Battle round 3, Main Course. Do not take Battle Shock tests for Hedonite mortal units within 12 of him. Damage round 4, Desert. This unit can attempt to cast an extra spell in your hero phase and unbind an extra spell. And then Battle round 5, Digestive. You can reroll casting, dispelling, and unbinding rolls for this unit. And then he gorges on Excess. At the start of your hero phase, pick a friendly Hedonites of Slaanesh mortal unit wholly within 12 of this unit. If you do so, until the next hero phase, until the next hero phase, each time that unit fights, after all of its attacks have been resolved, you can heal up to a number of wounds allocated to this unit equal to the number of wounds or mortal wounds caused by those attacks that were allocated to enemy units. So the maximum of 6. So all the wounds you do heal up the wounds you've taken. And then Crippling Famishment. Crippling Famishment spell cast on 7, range 18. If cast, pick an enemy unit within range invisible to the caster. Until your next hero phase, have the move characteristic of that unit and have run and charge rolls for that unit. So a great way to cripple like a big guy, like a Sons of Behemoth or Behemoth Mega Garden or something. The Lord of Hubris is the new character that came in that new box set. He has... Lord of Pain. Why don't I see him? Lord of Hubris. Oh, he's not in the app right now, that's why. All right, well, Lord of Hubris, the new guy. 6-inch move, 5. Oh, it's because he doesn't exist. What am I talking about? He's not here yet. 5+ save, 5 wounds, bravery 7, 5 attacks, 3s and 3s, -1/2 damage. As a 4+ ward. In addition, at the end of the charge phase, you can pick one enemy unit within 1 inch of this unit and say that the Lord of Hubris will give them the chance to strike first. If you do so, the strike first effect applies to that enemy unit, but all that unit's attacks must target this unit, and then only the best will suffice. At the start of the combat phase, you can pick one friendly Myrmidon Painbringers or Simbareshi Twin Souls unit, wholly within 12 inches of any friendly units with this ability, and if you do so until the end of that phase, each time a model in that unit is slain, it can fight immediately, then it's removed from play. So basically, they get the fight after they die. The glorious new Sigvald, Prince of Slaanesh. I love this miniature. I love the fact that they remade him. And I think I have his original too that I painted, but I think this one's even nicer. Core stats are the same. Shard Slash is still 2s and 3s, -2. He's flat 2 instead of D3 now, so he's got nice consistent damage. Glorious Reborn. The strike first effect applies if he makes a charge. Powered by Vainglory. Add 3 to charge rolls for this unit. In addition, the attack characteristic of Shard Slash is either 5 or equal to the roll of your charge, whatever's higher. So you have 5 attacks or your charge roll. And then you can't make ward saves against Shard Slash, and he has a 4+ ward save all the time for his Mirror Shield. Love Sigvald. What a great miniature. And the Lord of Pain, this is the guy I was thinking of before. Lord of Pain is the one that was in the last box set, the 2-player battle box. That's why I was like confused for a second. He's got same core stats. I think he's the same as he was in the box. 2-inch range, 3s and 3s, -1/2 damage. Yeah, he's exactly the same. 4+ ward. In addition, each time a wound or mortal wound caused by an attack with a melee weapon targets this, the attacking unit suffers mortal wound. And then Paragon of Pain. Add 1 to hit rolls and wound rolls for friendly Hedonite Slaanesh mortal units wholly within 12 if they're contesting an objective. While he's contesting objective, sorry. So, yeah, real good buff piece, cheap, and real good buff piece for being able to get onto buttons and then make everybody around him better. The Shard Speaker of Slaanesh. This is your little wizard. Shard Speaker. And another great model. Core stats, she is the same. Her Haze Staff. Wounds worse, but is flat 2 damage. So it's 4s and 4s 2 damage as opposed to 4s and 3s D3 damage. And the Shadowcloak Claws, 5 attacks now instead of 4. 3s and 3s -1, but 2 damage. So gain damage and flatten damage on both those. Cast and Unbind 1, Miss Lurkers. If this unit successfully casts a spell that's not unbound until your next hero phase, it gains the Shadowcloak Claws weapon ability. In addition, this unit has a 4+ ward until the next hero phase. So as long as she casts a spell, she gets both stat lines and she gets the Shadow Cloak. And then Twisted Mirror. Once per turn in your shooting phase, pick an enemy unit within 9 and roll a die. On a 4+, you're -1 to save rolls for attacks to target that unit until your next hero phase. The same unit cannot be affected by this ability more than once per turn. And then Reflection Eternal, cast on 6, range 12. If cast, pick an enemy unit within range and visible to the caster. Subtract 1 from the attack characteristic of that unit's melee weapons to a minimum of 1 until your next hero phase. So a nice, again, debuffy unit. She's kind of spendy, but a nice unit. And then your shooting unit, your Blissbarb Archers who are battle line. Core stats are identical. The bows gained 8 to hit, so 3s and 4s, -1/1 damage instead of 4s and 4s. Same range. Blades gained it to hit as well, so 3s to hit in melee. So again, with all these +1s to wound, their hitting is nice and consistent now. Your Blissbrew Homunculus, 1 in every 11 models is one of these. A Blissbrew Homunculus is armed with a Sybarite Blade. Add 1 to wound rolls for attacks made by missile weapons if they include 1. So you're 3s to wound. And then you can retreat and still shoot. Your Myrmidesh Painbringers. I love these miniatures as well. They are an other unit. Gain to save, 3+ armor. Yeah, there we go. Full Chaos Warrior armor now. 3+ armor saves. Their Scimitars gain an attack, so 3s and 3s, -1/1 damage. And then their Paragons of Battle, add 1 to save rolls for attacks that target this unit. while it's wholly within enemy territory or wholly within 12 of an objective that you do not control. So, yeah, go to the other side of the battle and have a 2+ save. Don't mind if I do. And then your other version, the Symbaresh Twin Souls. These are like the possessed version of these guys. They lost a move. They're only move 6 instead of 8 now. 2 wounds, 4+ save, bravery 7. Ego-driven, sorry, their core stats are now 2 attacks, 3s and 4s, -1, 2 damage. So they gained a rend, they switched their hits and wound rolls, and lost an attack and a range. Their ego-driven excess is subtract 1 from the attack characteristic of melee weapons used by enemy units to a minimum of 1, while they're within 3 of them, and they have a ward save of 5+ while it's within 3 of any enemy units. So, yeah, kind of the same, except their core stats flattened slightly. Yeah, I don't know. It's, the losing movement kind of sucks. And not getting the save. I feel like the Mirmadeshi Painbringers are the winner there, unfortunately. Hellstriders. These are your Clawspear ones. Their core stats are identical. Clawspear is gained an attack, so 2 attacks, 3s and 4s, -1, 1 damage. Poison is the same. Icon Bearers and Banner Bearers the same as the Demon Knight units. Jagged Weapon Limbs. If this unit's within 3 inches of any enemy units at the start of the charge phase, add 1 of the attack and damage characteristic of their Clawspears for the following combat phase. That's cool. So, if they are within 3 inches of any enemy units at the start of the charge phase, they get +1 damage. So they're kind of always charging, or they're charging when they're not charging and getting +1 damage. That's pretty cool. And then the Hell Scourges ones, same core stats. Their weapons, same range. 3 attacks now, though. 3s and 4s, no rend, 1 damage. Poison Tongue's the same. And then Hooked Tendrils, enemy models with a wound characteristic of 1 or 2 cannot contest objectives while they're within 3 of enemy friendly units with this ability. That's so powerful. Just turn off contesting, as long as you have 1 or 2 wounds. Some armies would struggle so hard against that. That's crazy. You just gotta keep them in melee with them. And then your Slickblade Seekers. These are kind of like the eels of this army, because they're the 4 wound heavy cavalry. Move 14, same core stats, nothing's changed. Weapons-wise, 3s and 3s, -2 rend now on their Sick Blade Glaives. Poison Tongues are the same, they can run still charge. Decapitating Strikes, add 1 of the attack characteristic of this unit's Sick Blades if they target units with a wound characteristic of 3 or less. So they get stabbier the smaller the guy they're fighting is. And then the Blissbarb Seekers, same core stats. The bow dropped in range to 12 from 18. That's not great. But they gained it to hit. So they're 3s and 4s now instead of 4s and 4s. Sybarite Blade gained it to hit as well. They can run and still shoot. And then Vectors of Agony. If any wounds caused by an attack made with missile weapons with this unit is allocated to an enemy unit, they're -1 from save rolls for attacks target that unit to the end of the turn. That's a great wombo combo. Units can't be affected more than once. Zangor Fiendbloods. Man, I forgot how much cooler the mortal stuff is in this army now. Makes you want to make a Slaanesh army. Zangor Fiendbloods. Come on, Zangor Fiendbloods. Why can't I find you in here? Hellstriders. There they are. Slangor Fiendbloods, sorry. These big guys, 3 wounds, so their core stats maintained. Gain an attack, so 4 attacks, 4s and 3s, -1, 2 damage. So they gained a damage on the Razor Sharp Claw. And the Gilded Weapon is now 5 attacks, 4s and 3s, -1, 2 damage for the Slakehorn. Yeah, so the boss guy gets an extra bunch of attacks. He gets an extra attack, basically. That's all it is. Yeah, the Razor Sharp Claw and Gilded Weapon is a separate profile, and it's 1 extra attack, effectively. Slaughter any cost at the end of any phase. If any wounds or mortal wounds are allocated to this unit in that phase, and the unit is more than 9 away from all units, this unit can move up to d6 inches because they run towards you. Obsessively violent. Once for battle in the combat phase, after this unit's fought for the first time in that phase, you can say that they will continue obsessive slaughter. If you do so, they can fight again but strike last. Dread Pageant looks the same. And then we're into endless spells. The Wheels of Excruciation. Turn, turn, turn. Tell us the lesson that we should learn. I think it was the Simpson thing. Wheel of Morality. Wheel of Morality. Turn, turn, turn. Predatory endless spell. Moves 8 and flies. Casts on 6. Range 12. And then at the end, after this endless spell removes, roll 6 dice for each unit that they've moved across. For each roll that's less than their armor save, so their unmodified save characteristic, they take a mortal wound. It has no effect on Hedonites or Slaanesh. The Mesmerizing Mirror. Cast on 6. Range 18, same as before. Irresistible Lure. If unit starts a normal move, run or retreat within 12, it takes D3 mortal wounds, unless it finishes its move closer to the endless spell than at the start. Doesn't affect Hedonites. And then Gaze Not into its Depths. At the end of the movement phase, roll 6 dice for each unit within 6 inches of this endless spell. For each 6, the unit's commanding player must choose whether the unit gazes in the mirror or not, or resist temptation. If they resist, they take D3 mortal wounds. If they gaze in, you gain D3 depravity points, and it does not affect Hedonites. Then the Dreadful Visage. I love the screaming demon at face with its weird tentacle tongue. Still cast on 7, range 12. Predatory moves 8, flies, Flensing Tongue. After they move, roll 6 dice for the closest unit within 6 inches of it. If more than one unit is equally close, the commanding player can choose. For each 4+, take a mortal wound. In addition, if any mortal wounds were caused, they strike last. That one does affect Hedonites. It doesn't say it doesn't. So Flensing Tongue will affect you as well, which is weird because none of the other ones do. Everything else they're immune to. But then Terrifying Entity, subtract 1 from the bravery characteristic of units while they're within 12, and add 1 to the bravery characteristic of Hedonites within 12. Weird that it'll still, like the tongue will still attack you though. And then finally, the Fane of Slaanesh. Your cool terrain piece of gold. Sets up anywhere in your territory, more than 3 from the other terrain features, or blah, blah, blah. It's impassable. Power of Slaanesh. If you spend depravity points to summon a Hedonites of Slaanesh demon on the battlefield, you can set that up wholly within 12 of this terrain feature, more than 9 from the enemy, instead of within 12 of a hero. Damned Conduit. At the start of your hero phase, you can pick one friendly Hedonites of Slaanesh hero within 6 and make a sacrifice. If you do so, all heroes, the heroes takes mortal wound, and you must roll a dice. On a 2+, add 1 to hit and to wound rolls for attacks made by that hero until the next hero phase. If the hero you picked has an artifact of power, instead of suffering mortal wounds, they can sacrifice it. If they do, it's no longer able to be used, and roll a 2+ on a, add 1 to them for the rest of the battle. So you can sacrifice any artifacts of power, including those that can only be used a limited number of times during a battle, and those that have already been used. If the artifact of power was used to enhance a weapon, that weapon reverts to its normal form. Crazy. All right, so you can sacrifice stuff you've already spent basically. All right, and then battle line profiles. So let's talk about some pitch battle profiles. So your Blitzbarb archers are 150 for 11 models. So weird. Demonettes are 10 for 125. Seekers are 5 for 140. Other battle line choices. You can take a Hellflare if your general's on a Hellflare. Hellstriders if you're taking Hedonites / Mortals generals. Hellstriders with Hell Scourges if you're mortal. Myrmidon Painbringers, battle line if you have a Lord of Hubris or Lord of Pain. And then Secret Chariot's battle line if the general is a Bladebringer, Herald on Secret Chariot. The Simbaresh Twin Souls are battle line if a general is a Lord of Pain or Lord of Hubris. So the big guys can be your battle line, which is cool. The Bladebringer is 260. Bladebringer on a Hell, sorry, that was on an Exalted Chariot. The Hellflare one is 240. The Seeker one is 210. The Contorted Epitome is 190. Dexessa is 270. The Infernal and Rapturous is 120. Lord of Hubris is 135, as is the Lord of Pain. The Shard Speaker is 125. Sigvald's 205, which I think is a bargain. Celeste is 215, which is also kind of a bargain. The Mask is 140. The Vice Leader is 140. Well, I can't believe they're the same price. I think the Mask is way better. Glutos is 480, which I don't know why you'd take him. Over a Keeper of Secrets, which is 400. Shalaxi is 420. Those are your behemoths. And then Blissbarb Seekers are 200. Exalted Chariots 180. Fiends are 200. Hellflayers are 130. Hellstriders with Claw Spears are 150, with Hellscourgers 160 because they turn off objectives, or enemy objectives. Myrmidons or Myrmideshi Painbringer, are 5 for 145. Secret Chariots are 110. Slaanesh Fiendbloods are Slangor Fiendbloods are 145. Slickblade Seekers are 200, and the Cymberush Twinslaws are only 140, and the Dread Pageant's 145. The Dreadful Visage is 60, Mesmerizing Mirror is 60, and the Wheels of Excruciation are 80. And then you can ally with Disciples of Tzeentch, Maggot Kingdom Nurgle, Slaves of Darkness, excluding units that must be can or must be given a mark of chaos. It means you can take the unmarkable units as your allies and then still take coalition units on top of that. And so it is. I mean, this one's, I think it's still a great codex. I think that my complaints about this codex are structural, not necessarily performance-wise. It definitely has better battle tactics than the Blades of Khorne one does. They feel more achievable. My problem with it is purely the fact that it's siloed into 1, 2, 3 hosts, and one host just feels... 2 hosts feel better than the third, I should say. I don't know which of those is actually better. I think that the movement speed freaky one is actually probably tactically really valuable. There's a lot of probably on-table subtlety. But the mechanical power of the middle one is quite good. And there's obvious bonuses to being able to issue free commands and multiple commands. Having a general that just hits and wins on 2s. I feel like there's a straighter path to victory with that one, and I don't see the value that much compared to the other 2. In the third one, I think that's just the problem with designing it that way. Designing these hosts. If you design one bucket where you can mix and match good things out of that one bucket, and there's less things overall, if there's only 3 enhancements, 3 command traits, and 3 spells for the whole army, then you can make them all powerful and feel good. You know what I mean? They're competing against each other. If there's 9 and they're all siloed where you can't mix them across the things, then they're gonna feel less good. They're gonna feel less exciting. The one thing did I miss it? Is there not did they just leave out a battalion in this one? I feel like I hit everything, but then I was I never talked about a battalion. Did I just miss the battalion, or does it just not exist? And now I'm second guessing my whole life. Going back to match play sections. That's Path to Glory. Hang on. I just realized, no, there's just no battalion. Weird. Okay. Yep, so there you go. So, and also they left out a battalion. Every other army got a battalion. Even the Khorne guys got a battalion. Weird. Unless I'm losing my mind and I didn't see it, but it was in the match play section last time. They get their War Scroll battalions, but they don't get a match play battalion. Yeah, they get their funky Path to Glory stuff. They get a Hedonite host, which is the War Scroll battalion, which is the one, it's the narrative one, but they don't get a match play battalion unless it's just not in this digital copy and it's in the print copy. I don't know, weird. I just realized right at the end there, I was I don't think I talked about that. And also, maybe it doesn't exist. So there you go. But I think that overall, I love the barter system of offering dice, the temptation thing. I like it anytime a rule feels like it merges fairly seamlessly between gameplay and the narrative. And that rule feels like it goes really well in between the gameplay and the narrative, because you're literally doing a selection thing. You're tempting them with some kind of success, but you're going to benefit off of it. That is the right way to do those thematic little rules, and it feels really good. I like the buy system. I am unsure as to whether or not you spend those points. Talk in the comments about it. I'm not sure, but there's no every time before in previous Hedonites books, it says reduce your total by the amount you spend. This one doesn't. It just says once you have this many, you can summon 1 unit, right? Spending those points. So I feel like this is a zero-sum game where you just continue to accrue your points, and then you unlock new abilities and you can bring units in. And the downside is you won't be able to do that grand strategy if you do, but also you could. So I guess we'll see. I guess we'll see if they go down or not. My rules is written. It doesn't say they do, so they don't, but I hate that as an answer. And overall, I feel like it's a cool codex, and I forgot how cool the models are. The Myrmideshi and the Mortal stuff are fantastic. So Highly tempted, as is appropriate for a Slaanesh book, to do a Slaanesh army. So big thanks to GW sending along the digital copy to review, and for you guys for watching. Until next time, I'm Ash. Hey there, I hope you enjoyed that video. There are tons of other games already recorded for you to watch. Click over to my channel page if you haven't already, and have a look through the dozens of playlists full of videos. I guarantee you'll discover a game you haven't seen played before. I put out new videos 7 days a week, and every day is themed to a different genre as I continue to explore the wider world of gaming. Of course, none of that's possible without you, the viewer, so click a like and subscribe if you'd like to stay on top of what's happening here daily. My 2 kids and I are massively grateful to be able to have the flexibility of this job so I can always maximize my time with them. If you want to support me continue to put out this content, it's only possible because of my amazing backers on Patreon who support the studio, equipment, and model cost, as well as being how I make the bulk of my living. You can also help out by buying a t-shirt through Spreadshirt, a measuring gauge or widget from Death Ray Designs, or buying one of my games and supplements like Last Days, Gamma Wolves, and Blaster. As a way of showing my appreciation, patrons get early access to new games and supplements that I write throughout the course of the year. Huge thanks for watching, it really does help out, and happy gaming.